This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
Speaking of starting a podcast, do you want to actually start this podcast?
We got 2 chapters to get through today.
Yeah, these are some low-density chapters for my notes.
It's so much build-up to such an amazing battle, and it's just, like, creeping. It's so slow. It's like you said, it's density low, but the tension is high. The building of anticipation is really a lot.
And I think that's what it's going for, right? Is this idea of, you're all, he's edging us, right? Like, he's teasing us.
Basically,
we're right on the edge of this major battle, this major resolution, and he wants us to sit around and talk for a minute. And so this is the tension before the beat drops, before the murderer comes running into the house. This is the bomb ticking down underneath the seat when you know about it, but the characters don't, right? This is the tension building moment that we're trying to create. But at the same time, it is just kind of them sitting around talking.
And a lot of it is stuff that we've been talking about for a while. This is just the conversation where that information comes from. So we'll probably go through it pretty quick, but there's also a lot of pages. So
yes,
not too quick.
Not too quick.
So yeah, there's also a lot of POV switching for the same reason. So I don't even think there's much point in doing a read-in. We're just going to be hopping POVs constantly throughout this. But we start chapter 35 with the wolf symbol. The chapter's called The Right Thing. And we're starting with Egwene sort of setting everyone up for the battle. This is her doing her last marching orders. Everyone remembers their stuff? Okay, battle stations, people.
And interesting on the timeline, right? Perrin has spent a lot of time catching up, and now finally, some time must have passed for Perrin, because we last saw him, right, witnessing pretty recently Rand on the mountain.
Yeah, the Perrin Egwene timeline feels a little bit like there's some days got lost between the couch cushions here.
Right, because I really do feel like Perrin skipped some time to catch up, because we've seen all of Egwene's stuff since because she was synced up with Rand, right? Unless I'm off on that timeline.
Yeah, no, because Rand came and visited her.
Right. So this is after Rand comes visiting her. So, like, there was from when Perrin witnessed Rand do Veins of Gold to now, feels like a very short time in Perrin's timeline, but it's been the whole beginning of this book for everybody else.
Yeah. I guess Egwene's been doing a lot. Like, maybe when we've seen her in multiple chapters, they're, like, not even necessarily on different days kind of thing. But yeah, it does feel like it's been a lot longer with Egwene than it has been with Perrin, even though we have Veins of Gold as a very distinct anchor.
Because, yeah, what has Perrin been doing since Veins of Gold? What have we seen? Basically training.
He's been dicking around with the White Cloaks.
Right. That's this whole thing. Yeah, you're right.
Bubbles of evil and more bubbles of evil and random trials and, like...
I guess that's probably explains the weapons bubble of evil and the delay is, like, trying getting the timelines to sync up between him and Egwene so that, like, all that time can pass while he's catching up in timelines.
Yeah, that's probably exactly what it is making sure that this set of battles could line up together.
All that delay that we've been complaining about this whole book is probably so these times. Yeah, here we go.
Here we go. So the only thing that's important in this first section, aside from telling everyone battle stations, is that she's asked about Gawain and said, we sent a messenger for him this afternoon. The messenger has not returned. Send another message. Right, so this is just syncing us with that. But that's literally all that I have.
Which is an important point, because he tried to send them a message, right? And that messenger never arrived.
Right, that messenger should have arrived by now. That person has already been killed. The moves are already happening for the confrontation this night. The Blood Knife has already done their first move of tonight's attack, which is, getting rid of that messenger.
And I also like Egwene here being like, please send a more politely worded message. Even though she didn't read the first message, she knew Sylviana sent it. She knew how it was worded. She knew it was brisk.
Shouldn't have let Sylviana editorialize my message the first time. Definitely got to tell her not to the second time.
And of course, what she's trying to do tonight, this battle we're talking about, is trapping Missana.
Yes, blood knives are not in the equation for her.
And so then we switch to Perrin and the aftermath of his trial.
Yeah, she's feeling emotionally drained, and since he doesn't believe in emotions being real work, he's like, oh, why should I be tired? I didn't really do anything. Dude, major emotional work was done putting yourself through that. It's okay to be tired.
And then here I feel like Gaul's being our advocate.
Yes.
He
Thank
says,
you, Gaul, for
"Thank you,
saying
Gaul.
what we all felt.
Twice we have run to battle and found no foe. Once more we shall lose honor. Stop doing this to us as readers. Stop getting us up for the battle with the White Cloaks and then saying, nope, not going to do it."
Yeah,
Like,
your blue balls and your warriors.
Yeah, and your
That's
readers.
literally what this is. And the readers.
And the readers.
Like, we need this to move forward. Duh.
He then gets in this sort of argument with Fael about the result of that trial. And she's like, "You're an idiot." And I kind of agree with her. But he, in his yelling back, she gets him to explain his reasoning in front of the soldiers. And that helps his cause. Rather than just having the reasoning in his head, the argument with Fael serves a purpose, which is him saying why he did what he did. Because he's thinking at a different level than his soldiers, right? He's thinking in a strategic level. Now, do I agree with that strategy? No, fuck the White Cloaks. They're useless. Wipe them out and get rid of them. They're more likely going to be a thorn in your side during the last battle than any kind of aid. And we see that. They're useless troops when it comes to the one power. They have no one power. They have no one power. They don't have any of the advanced crossbows. They don't have any of the advanced ideas that come from Matt or Rand's army or any of the 5 generals. They're foot soldiers of the most useless kind.
Yeah. But Perrin doesn't believe in the concept of people thinking different than he does, despite his beautiful, statement to Bayar before. He's like, why don't all the soldiers understand this intuitively? Duh. And like you said, it can't all be in his head. This is the thing he does not understand as a leader, is that yes, sometimes the things that are obvious to you are not obvious to others, and you need to say it out loud. And for once, Fael's desire to provoke a fight with him is actually productive, because it gets him to broadcast his thinking for an audience that needed to hear it.
And so he's seeing this tension building. The trial's over. He knows there's going to be this attack, right? He knows there's this trap set up because of the dome, and they can't. He's like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know we can't escape. So we're in a trap.
Right, because the White Cloaks clearly did not set up a magical dome. Clearly, they are part of the trap, not the ones engineering it.
And Slayer guarding it, is another big clue that it's not the White Cloaks.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, he could be a sneaky White Cloak doppelganger or something, but no, the White Cloaks don't fuck with magic, so, clearly.
Well, and Perrin says explicitly, I'm fairly certain he's Lord Luke, right? And he again, Sanderson loves to lay out things that we should have been able to figure out through the series many times before, but he wants to say it explicitly, right?
Yep.
Slayer is Lord Luke.
Just in case anyone forgot.
And so he's gonna go in there and basically say, yeah, I'm gonna try and beat the dome.
Yeah, and he leaves everyone behind with orders to deal with the real world implications. He's like, make gateways on every count of 100. As soon as they work, get everyone out. Fael says, okay, triage, send the refugees first. He says, I don't care what you do. I'm leaving this in your hands because I am now a trusting Borderlands style husband, and I'm just going to say it's your job to do everything other than the one thing that I'm doing.
And I have to go sleep through the last battle again.
Yeah, I'm going to go. Well, this is more like sleeping through the precursor battle, but yes. Yes, Perrin is going to go do his classic, I'm in the dream, it's real work, don't question me battle style.
What a leader. He sleeps through all our battles.
Right? Just defend his tent while he snores.
Right.
It's fine.
I kind of imagine there's some Two Rivers guy who just doesn't get it and is like, what the fuck? What is with this parent? Why does everyone think he's so great? He sleeps through all the battles. He says he's a terrible leader, and I agree with him. He never takes responsibility. He's such a young kid. He can't know what he's doing. There's some old man in the corner being like, why are we following this guy?
I want to read that opinion column in the Two Rivers Gazette. I want to read just some Sen Bowie's cousin or something that's just as irascible but has never been mentioned on screen. Just ripping Perrin a new one.
Gosh, even in his battle to save us from the Trollocs, he got ambushed and lost a bunch of people. I don't see we keep giving him chances. What is with this failing upwards that you keep just because he knows the Dragon Reborn? God, talk about a nepo baby.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, totally. God, I want to read that column. It's so funny. And then Perrin spells out very clearly, this is a bunch of book 1 stuff, and there's no coincidences when I'm Ta'veren, and it's all gonna come full circle.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then he goes off to sleep. And we POV switch over to the White Cloak camp, where we've got Bayar being an insubordinate little shit and Bornhald having a brain cell to rub together.
And this is all Bayar being like, being compelled, as far as I can tell. This is him having irrational hatred of Perrin, which canonically is from him and the compulsion. I don't know. It's hard to really tell which one's which. Him stabbing him is certainly the compulsion. And I feel like the irrational hatred is rooted in the compulsion, but he hated him before the compulsion.
Yeah, no, he's got brainworms, and brainworms make people irrational. That's what hate does to a person. Logic does not apply once someone has fully made hate their personality.
But then it was like solidified and pushed on by Grendel in some way that like...
Yeah, for sure. There is, in theory, a way to de-radicalize a normal person who has made hate their personality. I don't think you can once Grendel has pushed you to be locked into that forever. I think you are probably irrevocably brainwormed at that point. But Bornhald, holds a very legitimate grudge against Perrin that does have logic and rationality behind it, and it actually does need to have some amount of internal consistency, and that's why he's troubled. Because he's like, no, I had a very specific reason for hating Perrin, and there's no evidence that that reason is real, and I'm just enough of a rational person to be bothered by that.
And hasn't been compelled.
It hasn't been compelled because, Grendel missed the mark. Don't go for the guy that's already self-radicalized. Right. Go for his friend who's the voice of reason.
But at the same time, he's still saying, but he killed dark friends, right? So I guess he's a dark friend.
He killed children
so
and therefore is a dark friend. And I love how Galad's like, bitch, please.
Yeah.
I killed a child. I was named dark friend for it. Well, but you're different.
That was a battle of honor.
Okay. But it really is one of those escalatory tactics that fascists tend to use, is like, well, you did anything wrong, therefore you are the worst of the worst and I deserve to kill you. And it's like, no, people can kill white cloaks for reasons other than being dark friends. You might have been attacking their family. That's not being a dark friend. That's you were assaulting their daughter and they killed you. Like,
I like the parody account of the perfect poor person, which is going through and being like, the perfect poor person doesn't have loud colored hair, and just all these things that, like, if you do any of those things, you're not the perfect poor person and therefore are not deserving of benefits or help or the benefit of the doubt, right? And those things are the most minor shit that we all do, or even like kind of bad shit that we all do, right?
Right. Yeah. Poor people shouldn't have nice coffees. They shouldn't buy lottery tickets. And it's like, fuck you,
They shouldn't have phones. They shouldn't have,
Yeah. Like $5 spent on the lottery to give them a few minutes of joy is not the reason why they're poor. It's just not.
They shouldn't ever do drugs. It's like, you know what? I don't give homeless people money because they're going to take my money and do drugs. And that's what I want to do with it.
Right. But yeah, it's the White Cloaks are following that kind of like, escalatory, like, well, they did something we don't like, therefore it's okay to hunt them down and kill them. Also, as much as I'm defending, or as much as I'm praising Galad for calling that out, he does say also that if Perrin doesn't fulfill his oath, then Galad has the legal justification to hunt him down and kill him. To which I say, in which countries? Are you really saying you have legal justification to hunt him down across the continent? Because that sure sounds like what you're saying, because that's how the White Cloaks have always operated, and you didn't qualify that this was binding in Andor. In that statement, you just said, I have the right to do vigilante justice on this man in any country at any time if I don't like how he fulfills his oath. To which I say, seems like you're still a radical terrorist. You're trying to redeem these guys, but you're still subscribing to like some really terroristic attitudes.
Mm-hmm. But he is changing, I think, is the point of Galad, right? Life is not so easy as the toss of a coin, his mother had said.
He is thinking about it. That's true.
One side or the other, your simple illusions, right? He did not like that feeling. Now he's uncomfortable in his feelings to the point where he cannot trust the black and white worldview that he's relied on so far. And he's realizing that at this moment.
And he is pushing through that discomfort and getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I do want to praise that, because not enough of us in the oppressor class are capable of even thinking about doing that. So points that he is sitting in the discomfort.
And there's that moment where he redeems himself after he's rescued by Perrin, which again, no sympathy till it affects you. Great. But at least when it did affect him, he was able to make that change and decide to support Perrin. And after that point, we basically never hear from them again as a White Cloak. as a group.
Yeah, because you don't get to be the hero because you came to your senses at the 11th hour when your head was on the chopping block. You don't get the spotlight as a reward for that.
And that cuts us back to Perrin entering the wolf dream.
Yes.
Pops into the wolf dream, and he made sure not to appear where the camp was. Can he appear outside the bubble if he's inside the bubble when he goes to sleep?
I don't think so. I would assume he's limited to the bubble's radius. I don't know that he tried it, but I would assume logically that would be a thing. Maybe not then. Maybe he could have like woken up in the Two Rivers if he wanted.
No, because he wakes up outside the dome because he shifts to being just outside the dome.
Oh.
Right? So he wakes up and then says, I'm shifting just out. He shifted, appearing knee deep in the brown cockle burrows just outside the dome, and then he has to pass inside of it.
Oh, okay, yeah. So yes, there it is. That isn't even a question. It's just in the book.
But the question is, should he? I think he should not be able to wake up outside the dome if he's in the dome when he goes to sleep.
Yeah, I agree. That does feel a little bit too bendy for convenience.
I think he should have to exit the dome in order, should have to be able to walk, be like, I tried to wake up in this place, but I woke up instead in my tent.
Or like woken up at the edge of the dome.
Right.
Like pressed up against it or whatever, but, still on this side.
I had that moment where I was like, you know what? I think your magic system needs a little refinement because he's inside the influence of the spike in the real world and in the world of dreams. So it doesn't seem like he should be able to pass through that without an effort.
Yeah. We've got way too many scents blending together in the field because the wolf dream is also breaking down in the way that, the weather is getting weird out in the thing, flashes of smells and colors. Like it's even happening here in Tel'aran'rhiod, which...
Reality is no longer local.
Right, yeah, which, it's just the last battle is coming. There it is.
Which... the physics of it kind of makes sense, right? You have this bending. We could talk about the Dark One as being a black hole who bends time, but he also is bending space a little bit. And we're seeing that effect in Tel'aran'rhiod be amplified. Because I sort of think of him as this black hole, and I've said this before, but I think of Tel'aran'rhiod as the Dark One's prison.
Yeah, it all makes sense to me.
And that's the barrier between us and either the Dark One's prison or the barrier between us and the Dark One's prison. Because the Dark One exists... It's the same Dark One in all realities, and Tel'aran'rhiod is the same dream in all realities. And so it makes sense that one of those, and then you have all the realities outside of that. So it makes sense that they're kind of wrapped together as one thing, as the hub of the wheel of time as it spins. And then maybe you have a bunch of different wheels on one axle, and those are all the different parallel worlds.
Sure, yeah.
But that Dark One and Tel'aran'rhiod are the axle that goes through the whole thing.
So Hopper shows up, and also Oak Dancer, Boundless, and Sparks. So we've got 4 wolves and Perrin who are going to try to deal with Slayer and the Dreamspike and all of that. He's got his party gathered.
Right. And we see him having some better skills, right? He's no longer taking steps. He's just appearing and disappearing where he wants to appear. Very
Egwene-like in that way.
Yeah. He can push through the dome without really thinking about it, whereas before he fell down and was unable to move, right? So he's leveled up. He's better at controlling the dream. He's got more will. He understands how it works, and he understands that he can use his force of personality to control the world around him in the world of dreams. And this is where the stubbornness, the Two Rivers stubbornness really kicks in. Now, there's a moment here where he's like, oh... Slayer is in the wolf dream, and the wolf dream is ours. And I wonder how much of that is like, oh, the wolf dream is of the wolves, and how much of that is just like because they think it is, it is.
Yeah. I mean, wolves are the only creature that really like sentiently inhabits this world on a regular basis, as far as we know. Like there's not like intelligent lions walking around, So I can see the wolves having more of a claim to it than any other creature. But yeah, there is... I also noticed Perrin being like, essentially like hyping himself up. This is why I will win. And I'm like, is this part of why you win? Because you convinced yourself that you're going to win. And so reality shapes itself around you. Like, this is a manifesting place.
In the same way that Egwene uses the institution of being the Amyrlin seat, and the institution is something bigger than her, and she uses that weight to break Missana. Perrin uses the idea that he is part of the wolf institution and the wolves back him, and this is the world of wolves, and that's how he becomes part of something bigger that can beat Slayer.
Yeah.
And so this idea that it's not just you, it's this thing that has existed before you and for all time and will always continue to exist is giving you power. Seems to really help in the world of dreams.
Yeah, and especially when it's true. right? It's not something that you just made up in a moment of panic. It's true. It's been true for 3,000 years. It's been true since the dawn of wolves and men. Or like, with the Dreamspike, he tries to change it into a stick and he can't because it's here in its reality, right? He's claiming a real thing. He's also reinforcing it with the power of his will, but he's reinforcing a thing that actually exists, not something he made up. And Light-Blinded Fool is countering with the waking up inside the dome thing.
Sure. I think there's logic either way, and I don't have a super problem with it, right? It's just one of those things where I'm like, it feels like you're inside of it in the real world. You should still be inside of it in the dream. But I could see if you were like, oh, but crossing into the dream, you kind of go through the place of darkness and then you cross into the dream world from the exterior.
Right, because you're non-localized, right? So, I don't know. It'd be fun if there was a way to make that restriction a thing, but if it's not explicitly on the page, then yeah, there's good canonical reason for the loophole to exist.
And yeah, you think the Teleron Riyadh effects are secondary to its purpose, which I agree that it's mostly to prevent traveling, but the fact that it's called a Dreamspike implies that it does have like clearly defined Teleron Riyadh properties.
Well, and it's here in its reality, right? Like, isn't it when the nightmare pops, there's still a twisted lump of metal that's left behind that was the Dreamspike? Like, it doesn't change in the dream way. It changes in like a real object kind of way.
So here's my question: is the Dreamspike is obviously meant to be used in Teleron Riyadh, but how does it get there normally? Because we see Slayer.
I bet someone walked it through a gateway.
I guess, yeah. I was going to say, did Slayer not bring it in when he popped in through his normal? But I guess it could go through a gateway because we've seen that happen. That's the other way to get there in the flesh, as we call it.
Yeah, but yeah, Slayer could in theory carry it in there with him in his hand. I don't know, can he? Does Perrin take objects with him? No, yeah, because he takes Gaul with him. And all of Gaul's gear goes. So yeah, I don't see why Slayer couldn't have, taken it with him.
And does Perrin bring it back to the real world when it's destroyed?
I think he just leaves it there. He's a little upset about the whole Hopper thing at that point. So
I will say the fact that there's a second Dreamspike that gets used, right? That's at the tower.
Yeah, because they still have one that gets used for...
Yeah, I kind of wish there was just one.
Yeah, having two.
I'll be honest. Having two felt a little cheap to me. Or this one got repurposed, like he got rid of it and it got taken and used in the Black Tower, because the second one isn't used till this one's destroyed.
Right. There's a way to repair it even after being lava'd or whatever.
Or he like turned it off and got rid of it and someone else found it and reused it. Like, Taim found it and was like, ooh, sweet, I'll use this for the Black Tower. Yeah.
There's going to be multiples, at least make it be 3. 2 just feels like
right. It just feels like, okay. You needed something to get rid of. You couldn't make your story work without gateways going away. And so you needed a couple of different spots where gateways went away.
So, yeah. They encounter Hopper, or they encounter Slayer. They start fighting with him. We get good anime action, flippy, spinny.
Right, I'm behind you. Oh no. But yeah, I like that he smells. He's like, why does it smell like he's here? He's above me. That level of, anime, flippy, attacky. Yeah.
We lose one wolf right away, Oak Dancer, and then Sparks gets injured, but not out of the fight.
Oak Dancer should have been mourned a little bit better. It was definitely like, oh, and he fell. And it's like, dude, that's like the eternal life.
The leader of the pack?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's an eternal life and it's the leader of the pack. It should have mattered more at some point.
Perrin gets a pretty good cut across his chest.
Which I believe later when he wakes up, they talk about how they were trying to heal him because the injuries were appearing on him and it really wouldn't work. Because he wasn't there, the healing wouldn't take.
Isn't it also true that, at least Varen says that when she got cut in Teleron Riyadh, it never fully healed and left a scar?
Yeah, she had the big scar on her arm that she shows Egwene.
I don't know if that's always true, that the wounds people take in Teleron Riyadh leave scars.
It's the tests that are inconsistent. I think Teleron Riyadh, it's pretty consistent. But it's interesting and a fun mechanic that you can't get healed while you're actively dreaming. No, you got to wait until after, and then you get to see how that works. But
wounds can appear on you. It's I feel like it's because you're not in your body, right? There's no way to heal you because you're not there.
Yeah, but you can still take injuries, which seems unfair.
So yeah, he can now follow Slayer everywhere, except in the real world still. He hasn't figured out how to transport between the real world and the dream world yet, because he has to go in the flesh and basically almost die before he can figure out how to pull that trigger.
But yeah, he doesn't consciously shift into young bull, but he's been practicing so much that he can just actually slide into the role he needs, and Slayer starts to feel afraid. Perrin is feeling confident in his skills, and Slayer, for all his strength, is suddenly like, you leveled up way faster than I thought you would. Awkward.
And I was reading through the description of the Dreamspike, and it kind of feels like a braided strand of metal wire that's just been like pinched off at both ends, and then like forged together to form a spike.
I would buy that merch. I want one in my house. But yes, my house is protected. Because, travelers popping open gateways in my house is a really normal problem.
Yeah. And you really don't want them to come in? I knew you didn't want me there.
I didn't like the choice of bell you chose to ring the thing.
But you can set up exceptions and stuff like that. You can set up a password so you can travel in and out, right? Like a complicated Dreamspike. Yeah. A Dreamspike really is like, I can see where, oh my God, everyone probably had one in their home who's a magic user, because you were like, I don't want to be. It's like locking your door at night, basically. If there's an alternate world way to get into your home, you lock the door and you set up a barrier in the metaphysical world to prevent that from coming in, whether it's wards, whether it's a Dreamspike, something like that. Yeah.
So Perrin finds Sparks finds the Dreamspike. Sparks, who has an injury, goes off and finds the Dreamspike while Perrin's fighting with Slayer. So then Perrin's able to hop over, grab the spike, and start scooting the dome across the surface of the earth like he's under a bowl, like pushing on it like a turtle, because he doesn't know how to deactivate the shield. If he knew how to twist the top, then he could deactivate the shield and hop wherever he wanted, but instead he feels like he's stuck with the dome at maximum spread.
He really needs the user manual on this thing. He has not read up on how the buttons work or what the...
Literally, if he just twisted the top, the next 3 chapters would be so different.
So he's just basically hopping. At the end of the chapter, he's hopping away from Slayer, trying to find someplace safe, someplace to hide it, someplace to basically keep it away. Because he knows the second he starts shifting away, his troops start gatewaying out. At least the civilians start gatewaying out, right? So he's trying to delay Slayer, if he can't destroy it, delay Slayer as long as possible to escape the trap.
Yeah, and then he comes back and they haven't moved because some other reason. It's a whole thing. But he's gotten rid of problem 1, which is the dome being in that location. Now he has problem 2. The dome still exists and Slayer's still hot on his tail.
Mm-hmm. And if he doesn't destroy it and or stop Slayer, Slayer will just take the dome back and the whole problem will be happening again.
Yeah, he has not kept it from returning. So that's where we end that chapter. And then we pivot on over to chapter 36, an invitation with the sea folk goals as our symbol.
And this is the unification of the channelers, right? Like we've united the kin with the Aes Sedai, but we still have these 2 big groups, which are the sea folk and the Aiel, the wise women, who are not connected.
The Windfinders and the wise ones.
Other than, the only other large group of channelers we've come across are the Shan-Chan.
We know the Sharns exist, but they aren't plot relevant yet.
But we're essentially, I consider it, I almost call it the Grey Tower, right? We're creating this unified tower of Aes Sedai. People who are channelers, because you're either Aes Sedai or you're in one of the 2 groups who are training. And all these 3 groups, because they're sending each other apprentices, will eventually homogenize their knowledge into one giant pool of knowledge and skills.
Though I wouldn't call it the Grey Tower because the men are still not involved yet.
But I would disagree, because the men are bonded in a way, right? We've got those 47 women who are bonding the men.
Yeah, the men will be coming into the picture.
The men will be coming into it, right? We've got these mutual bonds. We'll have Andral, we'll have Bavara. We'll have that sort of bond between the White Tower and the Black Tower. We have the White Tower spreading out to include the 3 sort of nations, the West, the Middle, and the East. And I don't think calling it the Black Tower, it's not one tower, but we're creating a unified organization of channelers across both men and women from every nation and every culture coming together to work together to recreate, an Age of Legends type society where channelers are elevated and from every population and well-trained and not lost and all that stuff, right? We're bringing back the dominance of channelers.
But like in such a better way, because
Yes.
this time it's going to be 3, well, if you include, depending on how the men end up sorting out, but like there's going to be multiple different cultures that are never going to homogenize, right? Like the White Tower, I mean, Egwene even thinks here, you know, like the oppressive, patriarchal, white supremacy, only one right way attitude of the White Tower feels hollow to her. Like, you know, the Windfinders and the Wise Ones have been managing themselves fine without the White Tower, and the White Tower isn't inherently better. And I think that that's going to stay true even in the centuries after, you know, in the Fourth Age. These cultures are not going to homogenize. So you're going to have the channelers who have some unified culture, but they're still going to be so different. And I feel like the Age of Legends was way more like one world government, and that's why they needed Zoloft trees in every city. So I think this is going to be better. I think, yes, they are reaching back to the old vision of utopia, but I think this is actually going to be healthier than that old version.
Yeah. I agree, but, you know, one thing we've learned from the visions is it's not like we have a utopia. It's not like all the problems go away, and it's not like everybody suddenly gets along, right? There's going to be problems. There's going to be issues. There's going to be political problems between these groups. But yeah, I agree that we're going to end up with a better solution with lots of voices, lots of diversity. Yeah, multiple institutions. But I feel like, you know, if you're an Aiel who's got a lot of power, well, you might go train with the Aes Sedai for a while to really get a handle on that, you know, channeling power. If you're a talented dreamer in the Sea Folk, you might go to the Aiel, right? If you if you're really good at weather, and or maybe you're good at handling bigger flows, and that's a little harder for the Aiel to deal with, so they send you to the Sea Folk because they're better at dealing with sort of that raw power, big flow, weather type stuff, right?
You'll probably end up with more, you know, food and clothes and music and maybe even genetics passing between these groups over time, because that's how people are when they interact. And it's going to be good.
And talents that may have gone unrecognized or untrained can be trained by different groups. Yeah.
Yeah, who knows what kind of interesting wood-bending techniques the Aiel still have that the Sea Folk would like for their ships or whatever, you know? So yeah, I think this is a really nice setup for things that we know are going to happen in the Fourth Age. Okay, these powerful agencies are going to be working together for common goals. Whatever's going to happen in the Fourth Age is going to be messy, but these groups of people who have the best interests of their people at heart are going to be working together instead of against each other. And that will help the Fourth Age be a place we can put some optimism.
And the vast majority of this chapter is Egwene basically going to each group and saying, hey, here's the situation we have now. Wouldn't it be better if we had this other situation? If we gave, and they end up in this, and I don't even think, I don't necessarily need to go through each negotiation. I feel like there's just a lot here that doesn't need specifics. There's a couple of points I want to bring up, but like I don't think I need to go through the whole thing. But they basically come to the conclusion that you've got these three groups that are each going to send each other 2 apprentices. So 2 apprentices from the White Tower are going to go to the Sea Folk and to the Wise Ones. And 2 Aiel apprentices are going to go to the Sea Folk and the White Tower. And 2 Sea Folk apprentices are going to... So you have not very many, but for now it's a start.
It's a pilot project.
Yeah, and you're just going to build up this population because these women are going to live for so long. This population of bigger and bigger groups of people who have all trained with each other, right?
Right. They'll know each other. They'll know each other's idiosyncrasies. They'll have worked together. They'll have a particular person that they were friends with.
And then you'll have like Sea Folk coming to the White Tower, and there'll be a bunch of Aes Sedai who have trained with the Sea Folk and can sort of help them. It's a cross-cultural exchange that's going to make everything work really well. And something we've seen coming, and like the binding of these groups together is something that has been foreshadowed and talked about. And Egwene has said, I will bind all women who can channel to the White Tower. And this is how she's going to do it.
Yeah. And I think that even in my most pessimistic interpretations of how Cadsuane is going to handle her brief tenure as Amerlin, I don't think she's going to try to reverse this. I think even the most conservative Aes Sedai are going to realize that this is not a good battle to fight. It's going to be much better for the Tower to yes and what Egwene has started here. Even though Egwene won't be there to see it through, I believe that this will be the Tower's policy moving forward.
And so there's a couple of agreements. Everyone kind of gets to keep their ter'angreal, right? The idea that ter'angreal, that there's only a certain number of them and they all belong to the White Tower is outdated.
Yeah, the Aiel get to keep their pillars, yeah.
The Aiel get to keep their pillars. The Aes Sedai don't need that. They've already given the Bowl of the Winds to the Sea Folk, right? They're never going to get that back, right?
And then she gives them the loan to Terangrial in exchange for nullifying that part of the bargain she hated.
Yeah, and then there's that dumb, like, oh, I said I to train them. She's like, wouldn't you rather have apprentices that are moldable? And then you can send your own apprentices to learn whatever they want, and we can train them, and they can bring that back and teach you. Like, isn't that a better solution than trying to teach an old dog new tricks? And they're all like, yeah, we'd rather have the young dog be learning the tricks.
Yeah, resolves so much cultural misunderstanding and stuff that's been plaguing these books. Egwene's just like, what if we started over, reset?
And this is also that whole conversation. I mean, all the negotiation that happened with the Sea Folk, all the mistakes, all of the prophecy about, you know, this person becoming mistress of the ships and how she'd be punished for the agreement and come back. Like, this is all resolving all of that, essentially.
I also like, too, that they agree that the apprentices have to return to their own people.
Mm-hmm. For a period of time.
For a period of a year. Like, there can't be any, like, getting seduced by the shiny new foreign experience. You do have to go home after your exchange program and, like, think about it, talk about it with your people, and then choose where you're going to be and what you're going to do for your postdoc.
With gateways, not such a big deal.
Also that, but, you know, being at home under your mother's roof is different than just visiting on the weekends.
Although I do see this as someone being like, well, I don't want you seduced by all those liberal big city ideas without coming home and us being able to undo the brainwashing.
I do feel like Egwene is putting in a relief valve for all the conservative people in the various cultures in question. Because, again, they live for a long time. They can be very old-fashioned.
And I like this sort of philosophy here where she talks about her father putting up fences to prevent people from walking. And I've seen this desire path, right? Like, this is a whole thing that was big on the internet for a while, is the idea that, like, stop putting up fences where you want people to walk, figure out where they desire to walk and create a path in that location. And all of a sudden, everybody's life gets easier. Yeah,
this was a thing I learned in my geography program. I did some, like, park design, trail finding, like, how do we apply these principles to actual site design? And yeah, the idea is not to tell people where to walk. The idea is to figure out, where are people going to try to walk? Put all of the road, trail, infrastructure where people are going to try to walk, because they're going to walk there anyway. You have to go walk the site and think about, where are people going to be drawn to, and how do we yes and that instead of no but that?
One of the things I like in terms of urban street design is a lot of times what you want to do to slow people down, you actually want to restrict the width of a road without necessarily restricting the places where cars drive. And one of the ways you can do that is you can look at a road when it's been snowing, and you can see all the places that cars never touch. And so a lot of times that's like the bump. If you look at an intersection, you can actually protrude out the edges of that a little bit where people cross, because cars don't actually turn over that corner. There's a corner they don't touch. And so you can actually bump the sidewalk out a little bit. It doesn't affect where the cars drive, but the perception of the road narrowing at the intersection slows cars way down. And it means people crossing the road have less space they have to cross. And so it's safer for pedestrians, all that kind of stuff, right? But one of the two ways that they can do that is by looking at these sort of paths that people naturally go down. You can see that, if it snows, and you can see where the cars go. Leaf litter also does that a little bit, right? You can look at where leaves fall and where they get crushed and pushed off the street versus where they pile up on the sides. And so, one of the things urban designers can do is look at, leaf path and snow paths and see, like, oh, where can I actually build out easements that are going to slow people down based on where they're actually driving.
Right, yeah, because, to quote, the gospel of Men in Black, an individual can be smart, but people are dumb. People, collectively, very stupid. If you're going to build a path, if you're going to build infrastructure, if you're going to build an institution, and you want it to work for the greatest number of people, you have to figure out what the lowest common denominator, lowest energy state, easiest path of least resistance is, and build your infrastructure to accommodate to that. And if you're going to try to redirect that, it has to be a yes and, not a no but.
And you have to look at what people do naturally. You can't put up a sign that says, I want this behavior, expect people to read it and do that behavior. People don't read. They will do
Nobody reads.
Nobody reads.
Nobody reads.
If you want people to slow down, you can't put up a sign that says slow down. You actually have to make the road narrower and make them feel less safe, even without necessarily being less safe, right? That's the trick, is this perception of speed being dangerous, because it is dangerous. That's the thing, is like a lot of times you put a big open wide road with big shoulders straight, you're going to go fast on it because you have a perception of safety, whether that's true or not, because you have a strode with a bunch of people coming in and out of your space. The perception of a big open straight road is going to make you drive faster than a road that's windy or has easements or has intrusions, even if your wheels have exactly the same clearance and path to go through.
Yeah, when I was a little kid getting put into martial arts for like the first time, and they were teaching us like how to walk on a balance beam, they were like, hey, did you know, fun fact, this is basically how you walk anyway. It only feels difficult because you realize that you're trying to walk on this narrow little beam. But if you ever like watch your feet in the snow or in the sand, you'll see that this is actually remarkably close to the path that you walk without thinking about it all day, every day. So it's really a matter of your perception of, oh, there's edges. It's scary. Now I can't balance. It's like, just walk. Just walk. Which is really good, as a little kid learning how to stay upright consistently. But, it still works as an adult when I get onto like railroad tracks, which, hey, kids, don't do that. But if you know that there's no train, railroad tracks are a great natural balance beam that you can just find in the wild, where it's like, yeah, it's basically normal walking, almost.
I love walking on curbs for the same reason, right?
Yeah,
Because it feels
totally
like a balance beam, but you can step off on the side and you've got a big sidewalk there.
Yeah.
And yeah, you learn quickly, right, that like the hard part about balancing on a curb or a beam or something like that is not, oh my God, it's so narrow. It's the idea that it's so narrow.
Yeah, it's not like it's a slack line that's like moving under your feet or something. Like it's exactly as solid as the ground.
Right. You've just made this arbitrary width that you have to move your feet within. And that fear slows you down. And that's the same thing happens in cars. There's this moment where the Aiel are like, listen, we're not going to serve you anymore, right? We'll train with you, but there may have been a point where the Aiel thought they were supposed to serve the Aes Sedai, right? Those are the legends. That time has passed. And Egwene turns to Amis and says, the women you thought you would find are nothing more than a dream, right? This idea that you made these women up in your head and put them on a pedestal, and then when you met them, they're just real women. And this idealized version. And what that reminds me of so much is crushes.
Or meeting your hero. Yeah.
Right? This idea that like the person you think they are, the person you've created in your mind, and who you have all of this hesitancy about approaching, that's not the real person. And once you get to know them, you may like them. You may still, want to be with them. But chances are it's not the person you made up in your head. And that's why crushes are so ineffective as a way of like, I didn't know, growing up in high school, I had crushes all the time. And I didn't understand that once I acted on those crushes, why I just didn't like the person anymore. And it's like, oh, because I got to know the person instead of the idealized version of the person that was in my head. And so I really had to change how I approached relationships because I was sabotaging myself, right? So often in my early love life, because I'd be like, oh, I want to be with this person.
Having no idea who that person is.
Having no idea who that person is.
Right.
And having idealized them and idealize them over real people and being like, well, the people I meet in life aren't as good as the people I've idealized in my head, so I'm not going to date the people I actually know in real life. When those are the people I should have been dating the whole time, right?
Right.
And so there was this like, God, I remember, this is a little personal story, but a friend of mine, we've been friends for a long time, and at one point she's like, hey, I think I kind of like you. And I turned to her and I said, well, you'll get over it. And because I had such an idea that I wasn't this perfect person and that she couldn't possibly like me, right? Like, because real people wouldn't actually like me.
Only those people in your head that you've invented.
Exactly. Yeah. This sort of difference between what a real person is like and what an ideal love should be like. And seeing and romance somewhat did that to me, right? It did this idea that there's this special bond that happens in romance that's different than a good friendship. And there is, but
to less of an extremely differentiated degree than the movies would have us think.
Yeah, I mistook infatuation with love for most of my childhoodness.
It was an easy mistake to make. We were really set up to fail on that one. But yeah, no, I like that Egwene is essentially saying that, like, no, the Aes Sedai haven't fallen. They haven't failed to meet some realistic standard. They aren't a disappointment. You were wrong about who they were in the first place. Like, that was never who the Aes Sedai were, ever. You can't make America great again. It was never great.
Right.
Yeah, I blinded fool. Maybe let's not try that. Yes, I can fix him. No, you can't.
Right. No, you can't. Because he's not broken. That's just who he is.
Yeah. Like if his leg is broken and you're a nurse, then yes, maybe you can in fact fix him. But
and so then there's this sort of discussion afterwards where all three groups go back to their own group and say, hey, they're trying to play us. And it goes, yeah, but we can play them better. And all three groups are having the same conversation, right? Of like, here's the game. We've laid out the playing field. Now we just have to be better at playing the game.
Yeah, and that'll, be a fun game that never ends.
Yeah, and that's why there aren't any happy endings, because there will always be a little bit of a power struggle between these three groups as they try to exert their own influence over the other two.
But it's set up to be a very healthy, equitable playing field that should benefit all parties more than it hurts them. They're going to all be a nice check and balance on each other. Resources will be more shared than hoarded. Like, it'll be a dynamic source of friction, but it won't be bad.
This is a NATO shared trade agreement, right? This is like NAFTA, basically.
Hopefully it's better than NAFTA.
But that's the idea behind it, is right? They're trying to set up this free trade agreement, this idea that the ideas and training gets traded between the various nations of these channelers.
Yeah, and then we can be greater than the sum of our parts and more effectively deal with our actual enemies like climate change or whatever.
And Shan.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
The Americans.
Yes. And also, they are using the Ashaman as a potential goad. We know that the Sharans are going to be a thing that they'll be worried about. Like, there will be enemies that it's worth the three parties aligning to deal with.
God, yeah, Sharans. We don't know they're a threat yet, but like with gateways, they are pretty much always going to be a threat.
Yeah, unless they change their stance institutionally, which is going to be a whole negotiation.
Them and the Sea Folk need to change some institutions.
The Shan-Chan?
What did I say? Sea Folk?
You say Sea Folk.
Yeah, them and the Shan-Chan need to change some institutions.
Yeah, the two empires that are actively built on slavery as a virtue are definitely going to need to seriously revamp in order to not be the enemies of, I was going to say the free world, but that phrase feels tainted now.
And so we sort of end this POV with reports that the battle has begun. Basically, Shadow has attacked.
Yeah, Egwene's like, I wonder where they are. Has Masana not attacked? And Swan shows up like, we were trying to call you. The battle is so incredibly joined right now.
We've been fighting this whole time. Help. Yeah.
Which is a great cliffhanger for a chapter, a POV, whatever. It's excellent. It's because I was also sitting there like, but all that anticipation and the fight hasn't started. No, the fight did start. We just didn't hear about it.
It's been going on outside the room.
Yes,
and we're getting this convergence, right? We're bringing Perrin to the White. We sort of see at the end of this chapter, oh, why are these stories being told in parallel? Oh, Perrin's bringing the Dreamspike to the White Tower. That's gonna cause some issues because he's affecting Teleron Riyadh, where this meeting is happening.
Right. I wish that Perrin and Egwene had ever talked about the Dreamspike of it all. They have their little it's just a weave moment, and I think that Egwene wants to follow up with him on that, but she never gets to learn that he brought a nearly unique magical object to bear on the tower, and that's what went wrong with travel. Like, I don't think they ever talk about that. She never learns what a Dreamspike is.
No, because he doesn't realize this battle's going on while he's got the Dreamspike there.
Yeah, he never realizes that Masana was there getting her brain smushed while he was fighting Slayer. Like,
no idea.
They needed such a longer debrief. They needed like a long weekend and a barrel of wine to just like talk about that evening.
Yeah, no, there should have been a moment with the Emmons Field 5 coming back together and having a night before the last battle of sharing all their stories. Maybe Elaine and Avienda in there as well, and Min, right? Throw in the three lovers.
Yeah, totally. They've been around since book 1 or 2. It's fine.
Have Fail in there with Perrin.
Yeah, like a good 10-person barrel of wine, whole ass cheese board, and just sharing all the plot recaps. It'd be the one time we're allowed to have communication in our Wheel of Time. Would have been nice. But we don't get that. We get a POV switch back to Perrin.
And he's hopping with the dome, right? We saw him do that. And he sort of sees Dragonmount and then sees Tarvalin as he's hopping north and decides to use the city as a distraction.
He figures he can find a nightmare in there because city.
Right. And he's been having this trouble that, like, because he's hopping, he can only hop in these discrete steps, and he knows, and he's going in a direction, Slayer can just jump in front of where he's going and wait for the dome to pop on top of him and then attack Perrin without having to pass through the dome. The dome's moving to him. So Perrin's like, shit, I need to basically establish a place where he can't tell quite exactly where I am, right? A city's dense. You can move around, and if you're out in an open field, you know the spike's about at the center of the dome. You know about where the spike is. You can home in on him very quickly. If you're in a city, even a couple of block radius isn't going to necessarily help you find the person.
Right,
quickly.
Yeah. If he had just chosen to go up to Dragon Mountain in the first place, we could have skipped a lot of shenanigans if he had just turned left instead of right at this point.
That's true. If he just had the idea that, oh, I can put this in the lava.
Because, like, yeah, throwing it in the ocean won't work. Slayer can retrieve it. But can Slayer retrieve it from lava? I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so.
Even if it doesn't destroy it, the lava's going to kill him.
Yeah, no, he is not going to tell a volcano that he's unmeltable. I'm sorry. That's just not going to happen.
Okay, geologist.
I'm just saying. It's there in its reality.
Not the volcano.
No, but it's just, it's an unbeatable monster. It's a volcano.
Doesn't he toss it into a volcano in the dream? It's not even the Teleron Riyadh version of the volcano. It's the dream version of the Teleron Riyadh version of the volcano.
Yeah, it's a nightmare volcano. It's not even the real Teleron Riyadh volcano. Like, if he had tossed it into Dragon Mount in the dream, he would not have found a twisted bit of metal on the floor after the nightmare popped, right? The twisted bit of metal would have just sunk to the bottom of the volcano and melted away entirely. Oh, then Andral could have pulled it out when he made the gateway. That would have been funny.
Just like, what's that silver spike in the lava? Oh, well.
No. What if he couldn't make the gateway into the volcano because it was in there and it had its bubble out? That would have been a problem.
That'll be interesting. What if the volcano didn't destroy it? So that, the spike is just in the volcano. No one can get it out. And so there's just no gateways to or from Dragon Mount anymore.
That'd be funny. How big is the radius on that? Could it encompass all the way out to the foothills?
It depends on, it has a variable thing on it, right? So you can change the radius. So right now the radius isn't that big. It's big, but it's not that big. What do they say, 10 leagues or something like that? But yeah, it's significant because he was saying, oh yeah, I sent them out to the edge to hike towards the edge, which I think he said was 10 leagues, 10 to...
It'd be miles, probably. They don't use leagues in this world, do they? A league's about 3 miles. Oh, thank you, Athlon. 1 nautical league is 3.4 miles. Yeah, I think picking a Dreamspike out of the lava would be very challenging. Needle in a haystack, but Bernie. And a nautical mile is about 856 feet longer than a statute mile. Correction, 796 feet. Math. I forget why nautical miles and statute miles are different. I knew it at one point. I can tell from the name where they are relevant, but I forget why we had different miles.
Yeah, if they ever restored the gateways in 1 hour, start their marching towards the perimeter, where Neil discovered he can make gateways.
A nautical mile is based on latitude. Huh. But also being, like, on water, right? Like, nautical miles are for being used on water, whereas statute miles are regular miles, normal miles for land where rational people stay.
Nield and Gall scouted in several directions at Perrin's orders to see if gateways worked if one got far enough away from the camp. Sure enough, it turned out they did, though one had to go for hours to escape the effect.
Okay, not leagues, but hours, which implies a measurement that could be measured in leagues, for sure. Oh, interesting. I thought nautical miles were strictly for water, but they're not. They're just measurements and can be used anywhere. Okay, next comment. Okay, chat's so helpful. I love all you nerds. They're different because they serve different purposes. Statute miles measure land distance, while nautical miles are based on the Earth's curvature. Right, I knew there was something about circles involved in that. A nautical mile is longer than a statute mile for easier, precise navigation over long distances, like at sea or in the air, where the curvature of the Earth actually matters. Yeah.
Because it's exactly 1 minute of latitude. So every nautical mile, you're traveling a minute of latitude. Right. If you're measuring in minutes of latitude, you can be like, oh, how many nautical miles have we gone? This many.
Right. Yeah. And that really, doesn't matter at like normal person walking or riding a horse or driving a car to work. It really doesn't matter. But yeah, if you're trying to sail any distance, really, it's going to seriously matter.
Then doing a conversion. So yeah, Lightblind Fool's saying 60 nautical miles is a degree of latitude. So as opposed to if you're using regular miles, it would be like 60.8 or like 68 or something like that. I don't know, some point whatever. So on a map, it's much easier to be like, oh yeah, let's just split this degree of latitude and call it 60 miles from here to here.
And longitude is just fucked.
Yes. That's why you need good clocks.
Yeah, longitude is messy. And for anyone who's confused about latitude versus longitude like ladder, longitude like orange slices.
Wait, why the orange slices? How do those come into it?
Because that's what they look like. Longitude, it's like orange slices.
But how does the word...
Just because the almost rhyming with orange. It's easier to go with latitude, or like Light Planet Fool said, latitude is flatitude. But I always like latitude, lattice, ladder. I go from the double T's to double D's pretty easily with that word.
But ladder has both vertical and horizontal.
Well, like the rungs on a ladder.
Gotcha.
But latitude is flatitude is honestly better. I don't care if we have to coin a whole new word. That's better as a mnemonic.
Anytime you can get it to rhyme.
Exactly. And yeah, with that completely irrelevant tangent into measurements, into isology, I think we're done with Wheel of Time for today.
Yeah, that's the end of the chapter. Yeah. Like I said, a lot of pages, but fairly low density. And we didn't really go into the details of the negotiation. We could have gone to the personalities of the different wise ones and the Aes Sedai and the Sea Folk and talked about, one thing we didn't talk about is why that particular Sea Folk is now in charge, right? Because...
Oh, yeah, all of that Sea
all that
Folk
stuff,
rank
right.
changing stuff. That just all feels like such old news.
So, but Rhaenyra lost her seniority when Nesta died because they were tied together, right? And that's the thing is if your captain dies as a Windfinder, you drop down in rank and have to start back over again.
Right, because Windfinders will outlive their captains consistently.
Right. So Shaylin is now Windfinder to the Mistress of the Ships, which is why she's the one in charge.
Yeah, it didn't even occur to me to go over that because it just all feels like such old news. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today. We'll see you next week as per usual with more shenanigans involving this battle, I believe.
Yes. Well, this is a fun battle. I really like this battle.
Yeah, it's a good battle. Even the Gawain parts I don't hate a whole lot.
Mm-hmm. No, and I like the way that you've got multiple different plot lines coming together to make the battle happen in one place. Yeah, I think this is one of Sanderson's better skills, which is writing a Sanderlanche where you have all these different plots that come together in one single battle, and the different aspects of the battle affect each other and support each other. He's really, really, really good at writing this kind of stuff.
And we needed that for Egwene and for Perrin. They both needed that kind of treatment. Putting them together, it's more than the sum of its parts. I'm so excited.
100%. 100%. All right, well, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, book review time. So I've talked about Lycanus Trilogy by James Islington. He is now working on his second trilogy. And I'm discovering a lot of things that are similar, right? Like, his first book was not the easiest to read in each trilogy. But then, because he reveals so many interesting twists and turns, you can go back and the first book makes more sense after reading the second book. And then they both make more sense, I think, after reading the third book. So now that I've read the second book, I'm starting to really appreciate the first book more in the second trilogy. So it was The Will of the Many and then The Power of the Few. I'm only a little bit into the second book, but I'm already kind of getting what he's going for in this trilogy much, much better than I did after the first book. And again, he's doing something very interesting and metaphysical with his magic system in a way that I think is well done, and I'm really looking forward to see not only where he goes with the rest of the second book, but where the third book ends up. Because I think that he has a really interesting way of addressing fantasy systems. And one thing I will say about the Lycanus trilogy is the ending wrapped up every plot point so well, and it buttoned it up in such a satisfying way that I'm giving him a lot of leeway in these 2 books. Really enjoying them, really enjoy what he's setting up. And if he can pull it all together and bring it together in a satisfying way, I think it will be another really excellent trilogy. James Islington, especially as he develops as a writer and gets a little more, like, his characters are getting a little bit better. His writing's getting better, right? As he writes more, right? Like any author. And so I really do think that he's quickly up and becoming one of my favorite authors who appears to be writing on a regular schedule, on a regular basis, has ideas that he wants to share.
That's cool.
And I will certainly say his writing style is not for everybody, right? Like, this is not going to be a book with a lot of his romance is almost non-existent, right? There's relationships, but it's not a romance book. It's not necessarily the strongest characters that are going to be like, oh, these are my best friends who I relate to, right? He's much more in the, what I would call, interesting world building, interesting plot, looking at, like, sort of complicated ideas, but at the same time still telling a great story. But right, I won't say he writes the most interesting characters, for sure. But at the same time, like, I do think he's doing the thing he's doing better than anybody else at this time, if that makes sense.
People can have different strengths in different things, but still be equally competent at making some people think.
Right. That's I'm enjoying a second book. Yeah, I've been reading it. Definitely read a few other book series more on the romance side of things, just because my wife is reading a bunch of those. She likes the sort of the trashy romance, so I'm consuming a bunch of those as well. And I shouldn't call them trashy romance, but you know the kind that I'm talking about, the stuff that, like...
No, I don't, actually. I've listened to too many people rant about how trashy romance is simply a misogynistic slur that doesn't have any bearing on actual writing, so I genuinely don't know what you're talking about.
Fair enough. There is the romantasy side. Basically, since Sarah J. Maas published her books, there's been a lot of copycats that have said, oh, we can add sexy scenes into fantasy and that will sell. And so there's a whole slew of romance books out there now that are essentially fantasy light, fantasy trope with a bunch of very gratuitous sex involved and power dynamics that I'm sure somebody that you've heard people rant about that are unhealthy and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah.
Right. This new wave of clumsy meshing of genres that's not necessarily making real authors in either genre happy at all. Not real authors, but
previously existing authors, I would say.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of established authors being like, romantasy isn't a thing. Stop pretending it's a thing. You're just, yeah. Anyway, I've read a lot of rants. I am not capable of repeating or replicating them and doing justice to those points. But Athlon, time to make a sex-based magic system to really mesh the genres.
But there's always been this level. I think it used to be on like fan sites, right?
Right, yeah. But I mean, isn't Twilight was 50 Shades fanfic?
Right.
Right. So fanfic is escaping containment and getting publishing deals is what's happening. And then, yeah, people who are actually established in the romance genre are like, why are you talking down to us? And now adding a little bit of smut to your fairy books and calling it equal to what we've been doing for the past 20, 30 years.
But, everything's a remix, right? That's how new genres get made, is you mix two things together. Am I a huge fan of this genre? I wish it was written better. I wish it wasn't quite as lazy as it is, but it is there's always the lazy low-hanging fruit, and then you end up with something great, like Dungeon Crawler Carl, right? There's a lot of really lazy video game writing out there, right? Because it's very easy to take your favorite video game, you've got your hero, you've got your progression, you've got the levels, you've got the bad guys, recreate that in a book format where you win your fights, right? You roll the die the way you want them to roll. All of a sudden, you created a story, and a lot of that's crap. But I love Dungeon Crawler Carl because it is a well-written series using that concept. And so is there the possibility that there's going to be some really well-written romantasy out there that's just really good fantasy with some sexy scenes in it? Sure, absolutely. Have I read it? No, I have not.
Yeah, speaking of book reviews, I am love-hating Dungeon Crawler Carl. Halfway through chapter 42, and if you know, you know, I'm very angry. I'm very angry right now. But I'm having a great time with those books. That's the best book review I can give is everyone should go listen to our podcast at Donut Podcast, where you can listen to me aggressively reviewing these books in meticulous detail.
And they should now be out. If you've had trouble finding them before, they should now be published on every major platform. It's on Apple, it's on Spotify, and it's on basically any other platform that you could think of to look for podcasts, I think. So let us know if you look for it and can't find it. But certainly by the time this comes out, it should have been available for weeks.
Yeah, I think I still need to make the YouTube connection happen. I think that's one thing that I had to wait for the podcast to exist before I could even begin to set that connection up. So it might still not be on YouTube yet, but I will get there. Yeah, new episode came out today. I believe the episode that came out today was named Lava Llama.
Is that episode 3? So that's the first thing that wasn't in the Wheel of Time spoilers feed. So you can now finally get, well, I mean, as of us recording this, by the time this publishes, you'll be able to get far more than that. But now you can finally get new episodes in the Podcast at Donut feed.
Yeah, truly new episodes. They exist. Well, episode. The only other books I can review are by proxy. My mom has been getting some really cool books about the history of sewing and fabric, and then telling me about them for the Used to Sew podcast. And that's been really fun. She's been very enamored with, we've got one about, it's called Fabricating Consumers, about bringing the sewing machine to post-war Japan. And another one called The Golden Thread, which is just the history of textiles, and like how it relates to the formation of civilization and everything, like just the concept of textiles and thread and weaving. And then she just got one called Empire of Cotton, which is about how the entire world the way it is can be explained through cotton as a crop and what it's done for our economy and the movement of people and goods and the Industrial Revolution and all of that. And then she just bought a book today about sewing in the space industry specifically and how sewing intersects with early and modern space stuff.
I didn't realize how big textiles was in terms of the economy for the world for most of history, right?
Yeah.
Basically, you were either in making food or making clothes. Like those are the two things you did. You either were farm shit or you like wove and sewed cloth, because basically all of human labor had to be in doing one of those two things for us to survive. Right?
Yeah.
There's a reason they say shelter, food, and clothing. Like shelter, clothing, and food are the three things you need, right? And like shelter, you only need to build once, but food and clothing, you constantly have to make those.
Yeah, and it's really time consuming to take a fiber and turn it into a sheet of fabric. It's really, really time consuming.
By hand, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is something I hadn't really appreciated about the Industrial Revolution, is like a good half of the reason why we have the Industrial Revolution was to mechanize various aspects of fabric production. From spinning thread to weaving fabric to inventing and deploying the sewing machine. Like that was the point of the spear for why the Industrial Revolution happened. That was like the motivating thing, is how do we make fabric faster? And ultimately, you know, we end up with the transatlantic slave trade and the crashing of India's fabric economy and like all this stuff. But like the start of the Industrial Revolution is how can we make thread faster? How can we speed that process up? That's like a huge amount of the engineering power or brain power that went into problem solving was for textile stuff.
Even down to the beginning of computing, right? Because punch cards were invented in order to make patterns in looms for weaving, and those punch cards later became the foundation of the original computers, and that's how you were programming those. Basically, looms were our first computers, right? We programmed them to make patterns, and from there, that's the foundation in which modern computing happened, and in which we were able to then invent our first computers and do generalized computing. But yeah, no, I mean, fabric. If you're on a computer, you can have fabrics to thank for it, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, so it's like sewing is profoundly integral. And yeah, my mom's been just finding all these amazing books and then reading me passages of them to inform what we're talking about on that podcast. So I'm not reading any of them, but it's been very fun learning that there's so much about this to learn. It's fun. I like learning. I like it when other people info dump at me. It's a good time.
I didn't know that about you. I'm kidding.
I know. It's such a surprise. I haven't told everyone I know. Please info dump at me. Let's start a podcast.
Speaking of starting a podcast, do you want to actually start this podcast?
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Please rate and review us on your podcast app, and consider supporting us on Patreon for ad-free episodes. What Spoilers is a production of Fox and Raven Media. For more podcasts from Fox and Raven Media, visit our website at foxandravenmedia.com.